let's talk about your work, what you're currently doing as a regenerative organic farmer up in the Finger Lakes region of New York. Can you share with us, tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we're very small just because financially I didn't have a lot of backing, to start. It does take quite a bit of investment, to start a larger farm. So I kind of had to start from, the very beginning. We got a piece of land that nothing had been grown on for many years. I think it might have been a dairy farm like a decade before we got here. And I started with a quarter acre and, just worked up to a half an acre. And now I'm up to like 2 acres. And we are also blessed with a really great farmers market in Ithaca, New York, here in the Finger Lakes. And that was a great resource for me from the other farmers, from the elders and the people at the farm. And that was one thing I liked about farming also, that there was a lot of sharing. It's not competitive in any way. People are always open to share their sources for seeds, their sources for fertilizers and amendments, their techniques, their tools, all that. There was so much information about that available. And so I just started absorbing that and farming on the small scale that I could with the amount of finances that we had. And then direct marketing, taking all of our food directly to a market rather than wholesaling or selling to a health food store where you get less money. We take directly to the market where we can get the top dollar that we can get. And also we form relationships with customers. There's customers that become regular customers and friends. And, some of these people have been buying food from me now for 15 years or more. So it's nice to have those connections also. And then recently, since I'm getting older now, it's a lot harder on my body. I don't have a big tractor and I don't have everything mechanized. So a lot of the work is by hand, and it is definitely hard on the body. And so at this point in my life, I'm kind of transitioning somewhat or incorporating cannabis into our farming. Cannabis was legalized in New York State a couple of years ago, and they just came out with licenses for farmers, and they're trying to make it available to smaller farmers. So I saw that as an opportunity to transition and do something that, would be more lucrative, of course, where I could hire more help, more people to help with the work. And then also I could transition into some kind of retirement, because as farmers, we don't have a pension, we don't have a 401k. It's really kind of a strange situation that you get into where, there's no form of retirement, and a lot of farmers don't have a lot of money saved and all that. So I was seeing as cannabis as hopefully, something that could help me transition into that retirement phase in my life. And also it goes hand in hand with the food and herbs as medicine, because it is very strong medicine. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm kind of trying to work maybe 50% cannabis. Last year was probably 30% or so, but I'm trying to work it in a little more and work the vegetables a little less and see if I can tap into this market that New York State is building.
It is good that governments and society in general is starting to accept cannabis for all its medicinal purposes. So I think that's an awesome thing. It's an awesome thing. So in terms of a contribution to your community, what will the fulfillment of your purpose serve? How will it serve your community?
Well, first of all, as an example that, you can be small and sustain. A lot of times in industries, there's this pressure to just get bigger and bigger. And a lot of times as a business, either you're getting bigger and then there's a plateau and then you kind of like get smaller and go bankrupt. So I'm trying to show a model of that it is possible to sustain, on a smaller scale. You might have to do without some of the fancy things, but it will last longer in time. So that's part of it. And then also, teaching the younger generation. A lot of this knowledge in sustainable farming is not in books and not taught in schools. So it's passed down, from generation to generation. So I'm trying to be that person in the middle who's taking it from the elders and making it available to the younger people. And then it's kind of funny because, at the market, you end up talking about everything. our market has rules where you're not really supposed to talk about religion and politics and things like that. But for some reason, the farmers market is just a place where people really like to talk about all their stuff, and you find yourself in these crazy conversations. And so there's that kind of exchange too, where you can, as a farmer, a lot of farming, the principles in farming can apply to life also. I saw somebody else just talking about, racism and saying, that if something has its roots in racism, it doesn't mean that what came out of it is racist. And the guy used a plant as an example of how that's not true, of how, when you graft something onto a rootstock, like an apple tree or something like that, how the top of the apple tree takes on all the characteristics of the rootstock and how it's actually part of the whole thing. So I enjoy that, how the principles of gardening can kind of apply and give you teachings in life also. And then, yeah, at market, we end up talking about that a little too much sometimes. I have to really balance it out. I don't want to miss sales because I'm talking about philosophy and things like that. And then also it's nice when people come to the farm, because I can remember how I started and how much I loved, going to beautiful farms like that. And I see them doing that also, and seeing them have a lot of wonder and seeing how things grow, and also tasting things fresh out of the ground. That was one of the biggest things for me that probably got me into it, was actually like just pulling a carrot out of the ground and just rubbing all the dirt off of it and eating it right there in the field. It has an incredible flavor that you just don't get in stuff that's been sitting in the store for weeks. So yeah, it's all that. It's kind of about building community and sharing. I don't like to think of myself as influencing, but I probably do have some influence, or can have some influence, on the younger people and my family also. I want to make this available to my family. I realized, that in the beginning they might not want to be farmers or whatever. I understand that, but I want them to know as they go out into the world that there is this option, because if you get tired of working for somebody else, you got a crappy boss or something like that, or a work situation that's just giving you tension and annoying you and all that, to know that it is possible, to do something like this. And I wanted to keep the land, available for my family, so that if later on in their life they get tired of being out there in the workforce, that they know that they can come back and farm. Because as a Amish farmer said to me years ago, he said, yeah, it's a pretty good business. People are always going to be eating. So we kind of have that security, that job security built in.
Absolutely, because you may not want to be a farmer, but you must eat. So what are you seeing in terms of your purpose impacting others, in terms of people being healthier? Are you seeing evidence of that?
Oh yeah, there's quite a bit of that. Also, in just having great culinary experiences, like a lot of customers come back to me and say, wow, that was the greatest, this or that I've ever tasted. Also exposing them to new foods, which they've never had before. So yeah, I'm seeing impact in that way, but it's tricky because I always want to temper it with letting people know that it's not easy. Like they see you at market with your spread in front of you with all this beautiful stuff, and they can think like, wow, farming must be so great. But I want to make them aware that, there's a lot of crap that you have to go through to get to that point at market. There's a lot of failures, and there's a lot of bad stuff, and there's critters, that will destroy your crops, and like all kind of things like that. So in terms of influencing, I'm trying to temper it, the negative with the positive, and let people know that you can't really escape the negative. The negative is always going to be there. You're always going to have problems. But if you can deal with it in a positive way, then I think that's empowering to your purpose, because you're solving problems, you're fixing broken things, you're remedying certain situations, and that it really feels empowering, when you get down to it. As farmers, we have to be plumbers, we have to be carpenters, we have to be, bookkeepers. I could go on and on about all the different roles that we have to play. So I like to just make people aware that, like, don't just look at what you see in market and think like romantically about it, like, oh, it must be so great to be a farmer,
And don't forget, the most important, well, not most, but equally as important, is that you have to prepare the land and plant.
Yes, and weed and all that. Yeah.
And without the product, there's nothing, right? So In the farming community and in the music environment that you operate in, do you find that discussion about purpose is a common thing? Are people talking about their purpose? Do they see what they do as a purpose?
With farming, I would say yes, for sure. Because they want to sustain, they want to keep their businesses going, they want success. And without a strong sense of purpose, it's hard to achieve that. With music, I don't know if I'd say that. Like a lot of, musicians are just kind of on this different plane and level where, they're just expressing themselves, throwing stuff out there. And I don't know if it's as planned out. And then also, the ego can get involved. The more successful you get. Same with farming also, the more success you have, the bigger your band or your farm gets, the more that can feed your ego and can cause problems. And that's, to me, is the challenge, to grow like that without having your ego grow, keeping your ego in check, while all that's happening. And that'll help you sustain it also. Because like I say, I've seen a lot of farms, come up and get really big and, they're advertising and they're so popular and everything. And then a year or two later, they're going bankrupt, so in my purpose, I wanted to avoid that. I don't want to just do something short term. I want my thing to be able to sustain and to grow and to, share with the community and get them involved also if they want to.
So how do you ensure sustainability? What do you do? How do you manage that?
Well, it's like looking at your resources and not depleting them. It's the first thing. So understanding of, how to build soils and build relationships, and create good music and all that. And to be able to do that over and over. And for me, it was learning from other people, also the elder farmers and elder musicians, taught me quite a bit about that. I think it's about kind of taking a medium pace, where you're not really going real hard and putting everything out there all at once. You're like more like slow and steady, keeping it more even.
It's a balance, huh?
Yeah, balance would be the thing. We're both Libras, right? That's about balance. And the scale, the sign of Libra is the scale. I'm always having my scale there at market. Some farmers don't use a scale. They don't like it, but I like to use them because things are different sizes. You can't just charge one thing for something that's all different sizes. You gotta weigh it, sell it by the pound,